Are serial killers an enigma? Maybe so. But this is what we're going to examine in this video. I've done a little deep diving, gathered some information that I'd like to share with you. Also, you'll see some pictures of various serial killers from the latest to way back in the 15th century. I hope you will hang with me here and help me out with what you think. Ready? Let's go. According to the National Institute of Justice, serial killing or serial murders are series of two or more murders committed as separate events, usually by the offender acting alone over a period of time ranging from hours to years. Often the motive is psychological, with the offender's behavior reflecting sadistic SA and the victim's children, the insane, the elderly, being relatively powerless. Law enforcement officials estimate that in the 1990s, there were between 30 and 50 serial killers active at any given time in the United States. And then there's the question, how do serial killers select their victims? No one knows for sure why a serial killer will choose a certain individual as their victim. When asked why, serial killers often give a wide range of answers regarding the reasons for their murder. The most common belief is that the killer wants to feel complete control over another person. They thrive on the fear their victims display and see murder as the ultimate form of dominance over a human being. Many experts agree that serial killers have a fantasy of their victim. The person would be thought of as their ideal victim based on race, gender, physical characteristics, or some other specific quality. It is rarely possible for the killers to find people who meet these exact qualifications, so they generally seek out people with similar traits. Therefore, serial killings often seem to be completely random at first. Each victim may have something in common that only the killer easily recognizes. It is generally accepted that most serial killers feel a strong urge to commit acts of murder. They are, however, thought to be extremely cautious people who will not choose a victim unless they feel the chances of success are very high. For this reason, the first murder victim is very often a prostitute or homeless person, someone the killers can attack without drawing a lot of attention. These factors make it even more difficult to establish patterns in a series of slings and to track down the responsible culprit. Then there are some myths. It's debatable how many myths, but I know of 5. Much of the general public's knowledge concerning serial homicide is a product of sensationalization and stereotypical depictions of it in the news and entertainment media. Colorful storylines are written to pique the interest of audiences, not to paint an accurate picture of serial murder. By focusing on the larger-than-life media images of socially constructed celebrity monsters, The public becomes captivated by the stylized presentation of the criminals rather than the reality of their crimes. Media stereotypes and hyperbole create myths and great distortions in the public's conscience regarding true dynamics and patterns of serial murder in the U.S. The reality of serial homicide in the U.S. accounts for no more than 1% of all murders committed in the U.S., based on recent FBI crime statistics. There are approximately 15,000 murders annually, so that means there are no more than 150 victims of serial murder in the U.S. in any given year. The FBI estimates that there are between 25 and 50 serial killers operating throughout the U.S. at any given time. If there are 50, then each one is responsible for an average of 3 murders per year. Serial killers are always present in society. However, the statistics reveal that serial homicide is quite rare, and it represents a small portion of the murders committed in the U.S. Persistent misinformation, stereotypes present in the media have combined with the relative rarity of serial murder cases to foster a number of popular myths about serial murder. The most common myth about serial killers encompass such factors as their race, gender, intelligence, living conditions, and victim characteristics. So let's go over some of these myths. Myth number 1, all serial killers are men. Reality. This is simply not true, but it is understandable why the public would hold this erroneous belief. As late as 1998, a highly regarded former FBI profiler said there are no female serial killers. The news and entertainment media also perpetuated the stereotypes that all serial offenders are male and that women do not engage in horrible acts of violence. When the lethality of a femme fatale is present in book or film, she is most often portrayed as the manipulated victim of a dominant male. This popular but stereotypical media image is consistent with traditional gender myths in society, which claim that boys are aggressive by nature while girls are passive. In fact, both aggressiveness and passivity can be learned through socialization, and they are not gender specific. The reality concerning the gender of serial killers is quite different than the mythology of it. Although there have been many more male serial killers than females throughout history, the presence of female serial killers is well documented in the crime data. In fact, approximately 17% of all serial homicides in the U.S. are committed by women. Interestingly, only 10% of total murders in the U.S. are committed by women. Therefore, relative to men, women represent a larger percentage of serial murders than all other homicide cases in the U.S. This is an important and revealing fact that defies the popular understanding of serial murder. Myth 2. All serial killers are Caucasian. Reality. Contrary to popular mythology, not all serial killers are white. Serial killers span all racial and ethnic groups in the U.S. The racial diversity of serial killers generally mirrors that of the overall U.S. population. There are well-documented cases of African American, Latino, and Asian American serial killers. African American comprise the largest racial minority group among serial killers, representing approximately 20% of the total. Significantly, however, only white and normally male serial killers such as Ted Bundy become popular culture icons. Although they are not household names like their infamous white counterparts, examples of profile racial minority serial killers are Coral Eugene Watts, a black man from Michigan, known as the Sunday Morning Slasher, who murdered at least 17 women in Michigan and Texas. Anthony Edward Sowell, a black man known as the Cleveland Strangler, who kidnapped, raped, and murdered 11 women in Ohio, and Rafael Resendez Ramirez, a Mexican national known as the Railroad Killer, who killed as many as 15 men and women in Kentucky, Texas, and Illinois. Myth 3. All serial killers are isolated and dysfunctional loners. Reality. The majority of serial killers are not reclusive social misfits who live alone, despite pervasive depictions of them as such in the news and entertainment media, including the socially challenged tooth fairy serial killer in the film Red Dragon. Real-life serial killers are not the isolated monsters of fiction, and frequently they do not appear to be strange or stand out from the public in any meaningful way. Many serial killers are able to successfully hide out in plain sight for extended periods of time. Those who successfully blend in are typically also employed, have families and homes, and outwardly appear to be non-threatening. Normal members of society. Because serial killers can appear to be so innocuous, they are often overlooked by law enforcement, as well as their own families and peers. And that reminds me of Gary Ridgway. In some rare cases, an unidentified serial killer will even socialize and become friendly with the unsuspecting police detective who are tracking him. The Incredible Tale of Ed Kemper provides an example of this phenomenon. Serial killers who hide out in plain sight are able to do so precisely because they look just like everyone else. It is their ability to blend in that makes them very dangerous, frightening, and yet very compelling to the general public. Myth 4. All serial murderers travel widely and kill interstate. Reality. The roaming homicidal maniac, such as Freddy Krueger in the cult film A Nightmare on Elm Street, is another entertainment media stereotype that is rarely found in real life. Among the most infamous serial killers, Ted Bundy is the rare exception, who traveled and killed interstate. Bundy twice escaped from police custody and committed at least 30 homicides in the state of Washington, Utah, Florida, Colorado, Oregon, Idaho, and California. Articulated, educated, well-groomed, and charming, Bundy was truly a typical among serial killers in the cross-country killing rampage. Unlike Bundy, most serial killers have very well-defined geographic areas of operation. They typically have a comfort zone. That is, an area that they are intimately familiar with and where they like to stalk and kill their prey. Jack the Ripper provides the classic example of this geographic preference because he stalked and killed exclusively in the small Whitechapel district of London in the fall of 1888. The comfort zone of a serial killer is often defined by an anchor point, such as a place of residence or employment. Crime statistics reveal that serial killers are most likely to commit their first murder very close to their place of residence due to the comfort and familiarity it offers them. John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown, buried most of his 33 young male victims in the crawl space beneath his house after S.A.ing and murdering them. Serial killers sometimes return to commit murder in an area they know well from the past, such as the community in which they were raised. Over time, serial murderers may extend their activities outside of their comfort zone, but only after building their confidence by executing several successful murders while avoiding detection by law enforcement authorities. As noted by the FBI in its 2005 report on serial murders, the crime data revealed that very few serial predators actually travel interstate to kill. The few serial killers who do travel interstate to kill typically fall into one of three categories: itinerant individuals who periodically move from place to place, chronically homeless individuals who live transient, or 3, individuals whose job function lends itself to interstate or transnational travel, such as truck drivers or those in the military service. The major difference between these individuals who kill serially and other serial murderers is the nature of their traveling lifestyle, which provides them with many zones of comfort in which to operate. Most serial killers do not have such opportunity to travel and keep their killings close to home. Myth number 5. All serial killers are either mentally ill or evil geniuses. Reality. The images presented in the news and entertainment media suggest that serial killers either have a debilitating mental illness, such as psychosis, or they are brilliant but demented geniuses like Hannibal Lecter. Neither of these two stereotypes is quite accurate. Instead, serial killers are much more likely to exhibit antisocial personality disorders, such as sociopathic or psychopathic, which are not considered to be mental illnesses by the American Psychiatric Association. I would differ with that. An examination of such disorders are discussed of the powerful connection between antisocial personality disorder, and serial homicide is presented. In fact, very few serial killers suffer from any mental illness to such a debilitating extent that they are considered to be insane by the criminal justice system. To be classified as legally insane, an individual must be unable to comprehend that an action is against the law at the exact moment the action is undertaken. In other words, a serial killer must be aware that murder is legally wrong while committing the act of murder in order to be legally insane. This legal categorization of insanity is so stringent and narrow that very few serial killers are actually included in it.